Bill's Bloodline subscribers, we're back.
That's right, just like Kathy Bates in Misery, you can't keep us down.
Coming to you from the great Southwest and Central New York, a brother and sister from the same mother and mister, Patrick Newell and Peg Newell, your hosts of Bill's Bloodline.
Welcome. We were back a little sooner than expected. I'm Pat Newell. Next to me is my sister, Peg Newell. We got a few subscribers since the last episode, and this one is a little sooner than we expected. If you like what you hear, please hit the subscribe button.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening. You can find us obviously on YouTube here. We're streaming on Apple Podcast and Spotify. Drop us a line at billsbloodline@gmail.com. Ask a question of Pat and me, and we'd love to answer. Make a comment. We'll read your comment on the air. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Bill's Bloodline. So, Pat, there's been some changes to the organization.
Yeah, we ended the podcast last week, on a down note, and within 48 hours, we had a firing, and now a week later, we've had a hiring. Joe
Yes.
Brady is our new head coach. Peg, initial thoughts?
Initial thoughts, I need to be measured in what I say because I think I'm I think I'm in the same camp as a lot of Bill's Mafia. I don't like it in a sentence. To be succinct, I don't like it. If you want to change things up in an organization, this just screams to me keeping things almost the same. We had roughly a 66% winning percentage over the course of his 9 seasons with the Bills, 8 making the playoffs. And here you get this guy who's just a continuation of more of the same. It's not the shakeup I hoped for. What about your initial thoughts?
Well, I took Terry Pagula and Brandon Bean at their word. They were going to uncover every stone. They weren't going to lock into a specific type of coach, young, old, experience, no head coaching experience, previous experience, none at all. Are they up and comer? And what we got is what we've been getting the last 2.5 years. And we know who Joe Brady is. I guess we're going to find out how much of his play calling and his strategy was McDermott and how much was him. And, we're going to find out pretty soon.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we will find out real soon. I was unhappy with the 5-year contract. Of course, it's something that the Bills have no trouble spending lots of money and eating the cost, all the bad contracts in the last few years. But like you said, we'll find out real soon. But just disappointed in this decision because I felt a little bit duped by them, Pat. I felt just a little bit duped in the sense that, you're bringing in these wild cards like Phillip Rivers, which was really interesting. And we're talking about a CEO position. You're bringing in all sorts of different folks, not Kubiak. Maybe they were afraid they had to make a change. I was hoping that they would wait it out and potentially interview Kubiak, but it's like they couldn't wait. And then they just went with more of the same.
I had this thought before we went on, and I don't know if there's any weight to it whatsoever. You can give me some feedback. This is my take.
Yeah.
That the
Okay.
Bills got itchy trigger finger and they wanted their cake and eat it too. They wanted to interview everybody, but I think they got worried that Brady was getting courted by a couple other teams. He was a serious candidate for the Raiders, possibly a candidate for the Browns, who are still looking for a coach. And seeing the writing on the wall, they wanted to interview. I'm sure they wanted to interview Clint Kubiak, but they didn't. They didn't want to have Brady off the table. They wanted to have every option available to them. But these guys are looking for jobs. So, okay, we don't want to lose Brady because he's one of our top options. I know we want to look at Kubiak, who's coaching the OC for the Seahawks, and they're playing the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. So I feel like, and they're never going to admit this was kind of a panic hire because they didn't want to lose him and then possibly interview Kubiak Kubiak isn't as good as they think, or he doesn't want the job, and then they don't have anybody.
Right.
So that's my take on it, that this was a hire based on the way the wind was blowing with the coaching opportunities.
Yeah, I agree, Pat. I agree. And I think, when you do have a big shakeup in an organization, and an organization that has been dominant, just not making it to the big one, to the Super Bowl or winning the Super Bowl, there's a lot of pieces in place already. They're not a bad football team. They just can't get over the hump and go deep in the playoffs. And so maybe just giving them the benefit of the doubt, having that stability with Brady, is going to help them. Hopefully, there's some rumors out there about a defensive coordinator hire. That's pretty exciting, I think.
Yeah, Jim Leonard played for the Bills. He's actually played his first 3 years. The Bills. He was a free agent signing.
Mhm.
Has done well, coached well in college. I think he was at Wisconsin. Has been with Denver.
Yeah.
Denver obviously had a pretty good defense, and he was an integral part of that, along with Vance Joseph. So
You are listening to Bill's Bloodline.
before we
Yeah.
completely flush, McDermott, I just wanted to get your gut reaction to finding out that he was fired. And obviously we're living with it now. It's been over a week, but what did you feel?
So just a week now, my gut reaction was exactly that, Pat. I felt it internally, viscerally in my gut, because, you see these guys going up to the podium and crying, and you can't help but know, or think at least, that they knew, or they had an idea. It's the NFL, not for long, right?
Yeah.
And after all those seasons of not breaking through to the Super Bowl, something had to give. And so my gut reaction was pain, because Sean McDermott is a class act. He's a good guy. He's a culture builder. He was the one who helped break the 17-year playoff drought. Tyrod Taylor, he's the one who worked with a young Josh Allen and hung in there, and he was loyal. And he just was an even-keeled guy in turmoil. There was no breaking of tablets, no getting in someone's face screaming at them. He just was an even-keeled guy. But then I can't forget, it was his defense. He was in charge of the entire team and the special teams. Well, not the coordinator of special teams. He made the big decisions. He was ultimately responsible for the 13-second game. He was responsible for a lot of decisions. Rumor had it he told Brady to tone down anything that was too fancy in terms of the playbook. We don't know how much that affected Brady's play calling, and we'll find out. So it hurt.
Well, he liked the hook and lateral, or hook and ladder.
Yeah,
That
I
was
gave him
fancy.
that.
You know what? The time, if he was going to get fired, and it would have been a just firing based on how the reports came out in the aftermath of 13 seconds. The 13 seconds has haunted him. It's never quite left our minds, and here we are, like almost 4 years later. Uh, Peg, maybe you heard this as well, but apparently the special teams guy wanted to squib kick that, which would have killed
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 seconds, and he overruled it. He said, kick it into the end zone. And then at the end of the game, instead of playing up on them and basically mugging guys coming off the line and not giving up free shots, he called the defense. He called a very laid off prevent defense that left the wide open guys in the middle. So it was that loss is directly attributed to his coaching decisions, pinpointed. And the problem that people had who were close to that situation was that he didn't own that. The most we ever got from him was that it was an execution error. So that 13 seconds, that still bugs me. That's always going to bug me. And that after this year, everything that went wrong, I thought this is a pretty good coaching job. But
Yes.
it is what it
Yeah.
is. We're going to move on to Brady, and we're going to move on to the next topic, folks, because we're going to keep this short. Peg has a school tomorrow, and she's got 2 little kids to put to bed. So
Yes, I sure do.
she's got a 2-minute drill that she's ready to prepare for you guys, and she's going to hit you with it
Yeah.
right now.
3, 2, 1, 0, 0.
So my 2-minute drill this week, I was thinking about the myth of Narcissus and Echo, and particularly Narcissus. And to kind of condense that and give you the Cliff's Notes version of it, and the version that's not so violent, is Narcissus was a young, beautiful Greek youth. He spurned some ladies. Someone led him off, because he was just
Is that
so
what they call it?
beautiful. Yes, spurned some ladies. And then he goes off and he stares at himself in a beautiful pool, right? But he's staring at himself and he doesn't realize that his reflection is himself. And he falls in love with his reflection. And my analogy this week is that the Bills fell in love with the image of themselves, with their reflection. And what do I mean by that? It's the image that their offense in general, that Josh's legs, his Superman capabilities, that they could overcome anything, including not having a strong wide receiving core. And so that's what I mean, that they fell in love with that. Now, Narcissus, the myth of Narcissus ends. He stares at himself, his reflection that he's fallen in love with so much, without making changes, with keeping things the same. And he became rooted in the spot. And then he withered, and we'll just say he withered there and died. And then, years later, a flower grew. It was a flower to remind you of sort of when you fall in love with your reflection too much and you don't make changes and you don't have introspection and you just expect things to be the status quo, that you can wither away and die. And that's what happened to Narcissus, as a reminder of vanity. Now, I'm not saying that this team, this organization, that they're a victim of their own vanity, but this idea of falling in love with this reflection, this MVP quarterback, thinking you could repeat that 2 years in a row. It's like kind of repeating the Masters 2 years in a row. Really, really hard to do. And so they fell in love with this image of Josh's ability. And then this year, the running game, this ability with James Cook to compensate for these deficiencies that they had. Brandon Beane, Pat was going to ask you this question. We'll ask you in a minute. Do you recruit? Do you sign for the position or do you sign players? And I think he fell victim of, again, James Cook and Josh Allen's ability, which is tremendous, to compensate for the lack of a wide receiver one. The bad contracts that Josh Palmer, 3 years, $29 million. Curtis Samuel, 3 years, $25 million. These terrible contracts that, yes, you're recruiting for the position and not the player. And I really do think that Brandon Beane is the one who should have left this organization to get a fresh perspective on recruiting, not Sean McDermott. I'm going on in my 2-minute drill, and I'm sure I'm over 2 minutes. Just a lot of bad decisions that we can chalk up to Beane having that final say. So we got to make a change. I'm glad that we're going to have a change. I'm glad that we're going to have a new head coach. I'm just not sure we have the right head coach. We can't keep falling in love with our own reflection.
No, you didn't go over 2 minutes because about minute 10 in, you clocked it to stop the clock, and then stop the running clock, and then you kept going again. So
they got to have Pat. See, this is what happens. I put on my glasses to read, and then I don't read what I have written down, and then I make errors. So let this serve as a lesson to you, kids.
That's funny.
You
know what? I was thinking of an analogy. I don't have a 2-minute drill, but my analogy is not dipping into Greek mythology. My analogy is much more simplistic because I'm not a teacher, not as smart as Peg. So my analogy was that I went to the movies because that's probably my second favorite entertainment is watching movies. And the Bills years with Sean McDermott, that was a 3-star movie. Pretty good. Wasn't getting any Oscars, but everybody, after they saw the movie, they were pretty happy. They didn't get the end result, the final payoff that they wanted. But anyway, so they decided to remake this movie. They fired their original director and they promoted the assistant director. A lot of the same cast is back to make the same film again. And we're hoping for a 4-star result with basically the same cast and a new director. So that was my thought, my analogy to the Bills. Not nearly as in-depth as Narcissist and Greek mythology, but the Bills are trying to make a 4-star movie out of a 3-star cast and director. Yeah. So anyway, that was my analogy, and that was not nearly as good as yours, but
no, I like that analogy. And it seems like it's, given our cap situation, it's going to be a low budget film or a lower budget film. It's not going to be a big budget film. It's not going to be an Avatar. We know when we have JA-17 in the pocket, anything's possible if he's healthy.
Yeah, we had a 3-star. We made a 3-star movie with McDermott, and we're trying to make a 4-star movie with the same cast, and we're promoted the assistant director. You know what? I am hopeful for success, Peg, with Joe Brady, but if you look at some of our failings this year, especially the offense, he was complicit in all of that. The 5 losses we had in the regular season and in the postseason, they were definitely attributed to inefficient offense, long lulls of offense and turnovers. And
Hmm.
that's not necessarily on McDermott. That's
Right.
he's laid it in Brady's hands to run the offense. Granted, he may have had a partial hand behind his back, and he had to run the offense that McDermott had, in his image and his philosophy. But we'll find out. I told you before we got on. This feels like a soft coup d'état. I can see,
Yeah.
McDermott or in Philadelphia. I'm going to zoom this back. I got to tell you, he's
Yeah.
looking across the miles and saying, "Hey, tu, Brady." I don't know because his number
Yes.
one man has ascended to the throne, and where's
Usurped.
McDermott? Yep, he was
Yeah. He
usurped for
he
sure.
makes a great he makes a fall guy. Yeah, one thing that I can say to Brady's credit is that a lot of players have gone on the record, and Pat, you mentioned this, so it just brought this up to me, that Brady is when he takes accountability.
Yep.
So when he does something wrong, he takes accountability. I have yet to hear him make any comments, however, at least publicly, about the awful bubble screens, those 2 back-to-back run plays. Just awful, that run on first down. Then you end up at like 2-9, 2-10, 2-12 sometimes. I just hope to God he's not so predictable in play calling. And again, we will find out.
Yeah, my last point is, and it's going to Brady, and it seemed like when things were going well, he was in his groove, he was in his bag, as they say. But when things were not going well, he was slow
Mhm.
to adjust the protection screens, slow to pull away from the bubble screens, slow to change, the style of running play, like an outside pitch or an inside zone or a gap scheme. Um, Featuring different players, knowing what's working and it's not working. It would, and not that he didn't get to it eventually, but it seemed like he was slow with the adjustments, and that led us to find ourselves in holes and Josh Allen having to be Superman several times this
Yeah.
year. But I'm hoping that, when he's got a little bit more freedom, he doesn't have, Father McDermott over his shoulder telling him to not be cute, you know, maybe he will open things up and we'll see more of that offense that he had when he was at LSU.
Yeah, I think Pat too. Watching last week's games, especially the NFC Championship game, I just fell in love with the play calling. Like even a traditional screen, we don't see that kind of traditional screen or a delayed draw handoff. It's just there are so many plays out there. And how much is it attributed to wide receivers not being able to create separation? How much is it the lack of imagination of play calling? I don't know. I'm just a humble teacher.
I just have one really like regrettable, uh, and a lot of people know this who follow Buffalo Bills football, but we drafted a receiver who never played a game for us before Puka Nacua was drafted. Just want to point that
Yeah.
out.
Was that Shorter?
Yeah,
Who,
I can't remember his name. Was it
Justin
Justin?
Justin Shorter, I
Never
believe,
played a
right?
ga I don't think he ever played a regular season game for us. If he did, it was maybe 1, and Puka
Yeah.
was drafted after him. So, and then, I wish we had when I watched that game, I was like, "Oh, I wish we had a Puka. Ooh, I wish we had a Jackson Smith and Jigba. I wish we had somebody like
Yeah.
that. Even a Cooper
Yes.
Cup."
Yes. Yes. Um, I think to my last point too, Pat, we talked about this, and I think we're both in agreement on this. In the spirit of change, you know, doing the same thing over and over again is a definition of insanity. And
Yeah.
I think in my life, and I don't know about you, I've been able to elevate. Mostly, it's been in academics when I've been pushed, and sometimes in music when I've been pushed because I play music professionally. I had a producer, this great guy, who just kind of pushed me and pushed me and pushed me out of my comfort zone, and I created some good guitar solos and stuff. Um, but then in the academics, there was this guy, Chris Lalonde. I did not care for him, but he had such a high standard and he pushed me just to the point to the brink, but then also encouraged me. We don't see that with this bro mentality, hey, go home and self scout yourself. that Brady said to Josh Allen, and I don't like that. He needs someone with experience. He needs someone to push him to bring out the best. I don't like him sitting alone on the bench without having an offensive coordinator or another coach in his ear talking to him. I know he's channeling his inner Jalen Hurts, who's just like, hey, doing some box breathing, some Navy SEAL breathing, and just like, I am super, super calm. My blood pressure is low. Nothing can bother me. No, sometimes you need someone barking at you. Not like a Kelsey barking at Andy Reid, but someone in that proximity pushing you. And I don't see that with this players coach bro mentality, that you're one of the guys as a coach. It doesn't work in the classroom, and I don't think it works on the field.
You know what? I agree with that 100%. And we don't know if that's in Brady. I think there's other people that have said the same thing. But then again, he's going to hire an OC, and maybe that OC or QB coach can be that guy. He needs someone. Maybe it isn't Brady. Maybe it's the OC or new QB coach. Could be one of
Yeah.
those guys, as long as they're in his ear and they're not just giving him positive affirmations. Josh, yes, you're so great. You're so awesome. I don't care that you threw 3 interceptions. You're so awesome. We don't want to hear that. We need
Right.
someone to take him to task when he fumbles at the end of the half and gives Denver 3 points. The 3
Yeah.
points that made the difference in the game. We don't give up those 3 points and everything else plays out the way it should have. We win that game. Nonetheless, I agree with it 100%. I hope there is someone there that will step up. And I did want to piggyback on your point about someone, challenging you. I would say that I would agree 100%. The 2 jobs that I've been most successful with in my life were the times where I totally went outside my comfort zone, where I totally made the change and jumped into something where I wasn't certain that I could succeed. So, that's the type of thing that I wish the Bills did. But instead, we went with the tried and true. We went with the guy who's going to be comfortable for Josh Allen and comfortable for Brandon Mean because he knows who he is. And
Mm-hmm.
we'll see where it goes. I hope it.
Yeah.
Like I said, I hope it turns out well for us. And Brady is the last head coach that Josh Allen has.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so too. And Pagula also is in on this, right, with the comfort level, because we had just heard this past week. I'm a huge tennis fan, and his daughter Jessie is a force,
Mm-hmm.
really the pride of American tennis right now. And along with
Madison Keys.
Madison Keys, and he's only seen 2 of her matches in 4 years, which is astounding to me. So you see him sort of releasing the reins too, going with the comfortable choice. Again, we'll see what happens, Bills Mafia. Drop us a line, billsbloodline@gmail.com. Give us a comment here on YouTube. We'll respond. Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, we appreciate that so much, and we're always going to be Bills fans. While we may not agree with Brady, we wish him nothing but success along with the Buffalo Bills. So with that, on this emergency podcast that everybody else is doing, stay loud and stay proud, and we'll see you here. I don't know when we do the next
Soon.
podcast soon. Take care, everybody.
Yeah. Go Bills.
Go
Always.
Bills.